Thank you very much, Jonathan. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I know Tuesday night in Oxford, with all the things there are to do. Jonathan mentioned that I'm a Miami graduate, and not only am I a Miami graduate, but I actually grew up in Oxford. My father was a professor at Miami, and he was an accountancy professor at Miami. And so I've grown up in the accounting profession since the very beginning. Back when I started remembering accounting, it was the Big 8. We're now down to the Big 4. So by the time some of you graduate, who knows what that number will be. But I'll just give a brief introduction of my career and how it is that I got to where I am to be in a position to talk to you tonight about professional certifications and the role that professional certifications can play for you as you go through Miami and then as you go beyond Miami and you start your career. I graduated the first time from Miami in 1994. With an accountancy degree, and shortly after I graduated, I moved to Russia. I was with Price Waterhouse as an auditor, and our client was the largest auto manufacturer in Russia, a company called Avtovaz or Ladas. And if you see a movie from the mid-'80s that is set in Italy, all of those mid-'80s Italian cars that you see are exactly the same as Russian cars up until about the year 2000. Because in the 70s, Fiat took an Italian, well, the Italian auto manufacturer, built a factory in Russia for the Soviet Union, and they made Fiats. And so they started making 1973 Fiats, essentially, and they made those models for a long, long time. So I went to Russia in 1994 as an auditor with Price Waterhouse. I didn't spend a lot of time there as an auditor. I determined fairly early that auditing was not the career choice that I was looking to spend the next 20 years of my life doing. And so I ended up leaving auditing and I got involved in training. I was involved in the training for Price Waterhouse. I spent a year as the training manager for Arthur Andersen for Russia and the former Soviet Union countries. And then in the year 2000, I started my own training company called Hock Accountancy Training in Moscow, and we started doing CPA training. And so in the year 2000, I had a group of probably about 50 CPA students that I taught. And then we all came over on a plane and went to New Hampshire to sit for the exam in New Hampshire. And so that was a state that people were eligible in from other countries at that time. So I brought everybody over. At that time, the CPA exam was only given twice a year. And starting in the year 2000, we started with CPA. We started doing CMA training. We started doing CIA training. And then we started getting into some Russian language certifications that were being developed. And in the year 2012, after essentially 18 years in Russia, I moved with my family back to the United States. We moved into Columbus, Ohio, which is where I am today, a little bit north of Columbus. So any of you who are from Columbus, I'm in Lewis Center, just north of Polaris. We've been working here selling self-study materials. We sell self-study materials for the CPA exam, the CMA exam, the CIA exam. And we provide these materials to candidates around the world. We try to provide great materials that allow people to pass the first time. But what I'm doing tonight, I'm not trying to sell my company. I'm not trying to sell my services to you. It's a little too early for that, I think. But what I want to talk about is professional certifications and kind of the role that professional certifications play for you, or they can play for you, in your career. I understand that most of you are freshmen, sophomore, maybe a few juniors and seniors, but if we look at this from people that have just come to Miami or a couple years into Miami, but you're still not really sure what it is that you want to do, now's the time to kind of start thinking about that, because what you want to do is you want to finish Miami and be looking for a job that you're going to like. I hesitate to say this, but I understand that as accounting graduates, or finance even at Miami, your expected career path is probably to join the Big 4. And so a lot of you are probably thinking, well, I need to determine if I want to go into audit, or if I want to go into tax, if I want to work in the Cincinnati office or the Chicago office or the Cleveland office of whatever firm I go to work for. But what I want to do tonight is hopefully open that perspective a little bit, give you some ideas of some of the other things that are out there that you can do with an accounting profession, with an accounting degree, and within the accounting profession, the finance profession, there's a lot of overlap between the two. And I can kind of use myself as a little bit of a cautionary tale in that I went into auditing, and very quickly, I knew that auditing wasn't what I wanted to do. I absolutely understand auditing. I enjoy teaching auditing. But for the type of personality I have, the way my mind works, the process of auditing isn't something that I find particularly exciting. But I can see how, for some people, auditing is just the most exciting thing to do in the world. And so the idea is, if you start a little bit earlier thinking about possible career paths, possible career choices that are outside audit or tax with a big accounting firm, you might be able to identify earlier what it is that you're going to enjoy doing. Because one of the things that I've learned is a paycheck is nice, and the more you get paid is nice as well, but there's only so much that that paycheck and that money can do for you if you don't actually enjoy what it is that you're doing on your job. If you think about it, aside from sleeping, the thing you're going to do more than anything else is work. You may have a hobby that you love your family, you get married, you love your children, but when you're spending 40, 50, 60 hours a week at work, there's nothing else you're going to do besides sleeping that you're going to spend as much time doing. And so you want to make certain that that work that you're doing is something that not only pays, but also brings some sense of personal fulfillment to you as well. And so this is something that I like to, don't close any doors, I guess. We have a son who's a senior in high school, and so starting to look at colleges. And one of the things that I've told him more times than probably he's interested in hearing is, don't declare a major. Don't declare a major until you have to, because you don't know what it is that you're going to do. You know, you've got 4 years of college. You haven't taken all of the classes, that Common Core classes. You haven't taken a sociology class or a biology class or a history class. And so don't start locking yourself into a major, into then a career, before you know what it is that you really like to do. I mentioned earlier that I graduated for the first time from Miami with an accountancy degree. Well, I went back to Miami during that time I was an auditor, and I got my second degree at Miami. And I know oftentimes when somebody has an accounting degree, the second degree is in finance or economics or something like that. Well, my second degree from Miami is history, because history is what I love. I love reading about history. I love talking about history. Fortunately, I love talking about accounting as well, and so I'm able to kind of combine that with accounting. But it's important that you love what it is that you do, because you spend too much time doing it to not love what you're doing. And so the idea here, or the main thrust here, is professional certifications. And so when we start talking about professional accounting certifications, I've mentioned them here tonight already, and you already know them. There's CPA, Certified Public Accountant. There's Certified Management Accountant. There's Certified Internal Auditor. And you've probably heard of all of those. And the reason you've heard about all of those is because you're in America, and those are the American certifications. Other countries have their own professional certifications in accounting and finance. The American certifications tend to be a little bit more accepted around the world. CPA is probably the most accepted and recognized accounting certification in the world, but I can talk about ACCA, ACA, CIMA, and even though you haven't heard about these necessarily, these are large international professional certifications that provide a lot of value to the members of these professional organizations and also those individuals who have those professional certifications. And so we're talking about professional certifications, and clearly the ones that you're going to be looking at are the ones that are in America, the ones that are recognized in America. But you also need to keep in mind that this is not something that is uniquely American. This is something that is connected to being a professional, to being part of a profession, whether it's accounting or finance, whatever it is. Having that professional certification is part of your job, part of your career, and part of your profession. And so I guess the question becomes at the very beginning, why should you get a professional certification? Or should you get a professional certification? And if you should, what are the reasons that you want to do it? Well, I look at this question of whether or not you should get a professional certification from a very good accounting or finance perspective. And that's the perspective of, we need to look at the return on investment. You're going to spend money registering for the exam. You're going to spend money buying materials for the exam, and you're going to spend a lot of time. Okay, hundreds and hundreds of hours of time studying to pass these exams. So you're making quite an investment, which means if you're going to make that much of an investment in time and money, you need to make certain that there's a return on that investment. And I can tell you right away, yes, there is. Okay, if you look at the number of hours that you're going to spend studying for the exam, and it's actually fewer hours if you do it while you're in school, but if you look at the number of hours that you're going to study, if you look at the cost of getting the exam, it's really nothing compared to the number of hours you're going to work in your life and the income that you're going to make. And there are all kinds of salaries. The Institute of Management Accountants does a very good salary survey, and they demonstrate how much becoming certified is. Now, their survey is probably based on the CMA exam, but clearly, if you are certified, you're going to make more money in your career than somebody who is not certified. You're going to make more money because you're going to get a job faster. You're going to come out of Miami, and if you have passed your exams, or even if you've attempted your exams, you're going to get a job sooner than somebody else. And because you have the skills that you learn in your professional certification, that knowledge that you get when you take those exams, you're actually going to be better at your job faster than other people who don't have that knowledge base, that don't have that skill set. So you're going to get promoted earlier. So you make money a little bit faster, you get promoted a little bit faster, you get a little bit bigger raise every time. You're absolutely going to have a positive return on investment from your professional certification. Absolutely, you're going to have a positive return on investment. And so as an accountant and finance person, if we know that there's a positive return on investment, this is something that we want to pursue. This is something that we need to understand at some point in our career. Most likely, we're going to end up with a professional certification. Now, the way it usually works in a CPA firm is you pass the exam right after you graduate or during your last year, whatever the case may be. But you don't actually get your certification right away. You don't get your CPA license until they want to promote you to manager, or until you're going to leave the firm and you need them to sign off on your experience so you can get your license. But you've started that process and you've demonstrated to everybody around you that you're committed to accounting. You're committed to this job that you've started. You're not going to leave next week and decide you want to go into marketing or history. You've made that commitment to this professional certification, which means their investment in you as an employee is something that's going to provide a return to them as well. So if we've determined that a professional certification provides a positive ROI, really the question that is most important in this process is choosing the right certification for you. Okay, what is the certification that's going to help you the most? And when we're looking at this question about which certification you should obtain, and I understand that at a university like Miami, probably the vast majority of the information and kind of the emphasis and the thought process, the talking and the discussion is about CPA. And that's absolutely fine, absolutely wonderful certification to get. There's no reason not to. If your education and your classes are preparing you to pass the exam, you should absolutely take the CPA exam. It's not much of an incremental cost for you to do that. But that doesn't mean that CPA is going to be the best certification that's going to serve you the best in your career. And so we're starting here, even though most of you are a couple years away from graduating, and I guess even those of you who just started at Miami, you entered a very different Miami than you expected you would enter last year. When you were going through your senior year in high school, you had a vision of what going to Miami was going to be. You had your campus tours and all of that, and clearly the Miami experience that you have right now is different than you expected it to be. But we still need to be looking to kind of get ourselves lined up in terms of what it is that we want to do. And so before I start talking about specific certifications and how to identify what certification you might want to be thinking about pursuing. I want to take a step back and talk a little bit about the two words that are part of professional certification. What is professional and what is certification? And then after we understand a little bit about professional and certification, we'll come back and we'll talk about what it is that, or the different certifications and how it is you might find something that's going to work for you. Well, this is not a short-term decision. Okay, if you're an accounting major and you like accounting and you stay in accounting, you're looking at a career that's somehow related to accounting. In today's day and age, you're going to have multiple jobs with multiple companies. And so we can't be so focused that this is exactly what I want to do for this company. But we do need to have an idea of what's going to happen after you graduate and you get your job and you start going through your work life. And what I want to do is kind of talk about some stages in your work life and help you kind of see what's going to be happening, because I think if we know kind of that progression of what happens when we enter the world of work, we're able to see how it is that a professional certification fits into that. So after you graduate, you're going to start your work life, and there are, in my mind, 3 distinct stages to your work life that you're going to go through. And some of you may go through it a little bit faster than others. Some may have a detour. You may get a history degree or something like that and take a couple years out from the accounting process. But we're all going to follow in some way these different progressions. And I'm not saying that one stage is better than the other, but they're different. So when you graduate and you do your interviews before you graduate, and hopefully you have that job offer accepted before you graduate, you're going to have your first job. And at that point in your work life, the way I describe it is that you have a job. And when you think of your job, you essentially are thinking about your business card. Your business card has your name on it, it has the company you work, and it has a position. Okay, it says Brian Hock, XYZ Company, accounts payable clerk, account manager, analyst, whatever the job title is that you have. That's your business card. And that's how you think about yourself. If you meet somebody new and they say, oh, tell me about yourself. You say, hi, I'm Brian. I work at XYZ Company, and I'm the accounts payable manager, the accounts payable clerk. And that's how you identify yourself, your company, and the position that you have. And at this time, the way I kind of look at a person at this stage, I look at them and their perspective is down. They are looking at themselves at this point in time. I am at this company in this job. And there's really no thought about 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I mean, when you do your annual evaluation, they may ask you that question, but there's really no clear understanding in your mind about what 5 years down the line looks like, what 10 years down the line looks like. Your perspective is down. You're focused on yourself at this point in time. And then, I don't know, a couple years later, you've had your job, you've gotten good at your job, you're really good at it, but you begin to think, you know, I don't think I want to be accounts payable clerk for the next 30 years before I retire. I want to do something else. And you begin naturally yourself to start thinking about what's next. What job do I want? I know I don't want this one, but what job do I want? And you start looking around at jobs in your company. And you start looking at the people you know. And oh, hey, I like that guy. Has always got fun stuff to work on. I want to do that. Or a friend works in another company, or a relative you talk to, or somebody you know at church or in some other organization. And you begin to see these other jobs that are out there, and you begin to think to yourself, that's what I want to do. And so now, as soon as you start thinking about what you want to go into, what you want your next job to be, what you want 5 years from now, you've stopped thinking, your perspective is no longer about yourself right now. Your perspective is what I say, it's up. You're now looking to your future. And you are now starting to think about a career. So when somebody asks you, what do? You may say, I'm Brian Hock and I work for XYZ company and I'm the accounts payable clerk. But then you say, but that's not what I want. I want to become the finance director. I want to become the investment analyst. I want to start my own company that provides accounting services to small businesses. And so your identity isn't only what you're doing right now, but it's what you want to do next as well. And you start thinking, well, if I want to be the finance director of this company, it may be 10 years away. It may be 12, 15 years away from where you are right now, but you started to put the pieces in place. Well, if I want to be the finance director, I need to make certain I get this much experience in this part of the business, and I need to make certain that I get transferred to another part of the business. I may even, if it's a large enough company, I may even need to have to go to another country for a little while. But you're beginning to think that this is where I'm going, and you've started to put together the plan as to how you're going to get there. And that's your career. And then, as we do that, we start having our career, we start having these goals, that's when we start connecting with other people. Because we had to talk to somebody to learn what we need to do to become the finance director. We needed to talk to somebody else to find out that we didn't want to do another job. And as we meet these people, we meet other people, and we start having that network. I know that every time you go to a meeting, you're supposed to network. You're supposed to introduce yourself to people and talk to the other people. And that's what you start doing as part of your career, is networking with other people. And then we get to what I call the third stage, and that's where you start identifying yourself as a professional. You start identifying yourself as part of a profession. And when this happens, you no longer have a perspective that's down. Your perspective is up, looking at the future, but the perspective is also all around you. Because you see that there's other people that are doing exactly the same thing that you are. You're not the only finance director in the world. You're not the only person who's trying to become a finance director. And so you see that other people are part of this profession. And when you're a profession, when you have that mentality, and somebody asks what you do, your answer is, I'm an accountant. I'm a finance director. It's not so much about where you work. It's not so much about the business card anymore. I mean, obviously, you know where you work and you're going to tell people where you work. But that sense of identity isn't to your business card. It's not to your company. It's not to the title that you have in that company. You've begun to identify yourself as this larger professional. You've begun to realize that you didn't do it yourself. You didn't get to this point just because you're smarter than everybody else. Maybe you are. But there was a network that helped you get there. There were people that gave you the necessary experience, that gave you the necessary opportunities. And all of that larger profession is what you're a part of. And we can see this. When I stand up and I introduce myself and I say, I'm a CMA. I'm a certified management accountant. I have the certificate and I'm a CMA. Well, what I've done is I've put myself in the same category as every other CMA you're ever going to meet. And we have the risk of guilt by association. If you've had bad experiences with other CMAs, when you find out that I'm a CMA, you're going to have a little bit of skepticism about me. You say, oh, I know some other CMAs. But that won't have happened. You'll have had good experiences with people that are CMAs. And I benefit from that. I benefit from the fact that you've had good experiences with other CMAs. And so people say, hey, he has the same certification. He has the same certificate. He's gone through the same training process, the same experience as those other CMAs that I've met. And so I benefit from all of those other CMAs. This is a problem with a new professional certification. If nobody's ever had that professional certification before, if you start a new certification, it doesn't have any value in the marketplace because nobody knows it. You have to have a critical mass of people so that other people in the market say, hey, I met somebody who was that. They were a good person, so this person must be as well. So as you look forward to your jobs, and I know your first job is not going to be your last job, but what I encourage you to do is to be open about it and not get locked right now into this idea of audit or tax with the Big Four. Keep in mind that there's other careers out there, there are other jobs out there that may be a wonderful match for what it is that you want to do, the lifestyle that you want to have, and we'll talk about some of them here in a minute. But keep in mind that this is a long-term goal, a long-term process from where you are right now to where it is that you're going to retire. Keep the doors open and keep in mind that you're not going to be doing this alone. Ultimately, if you're going to get to the top of your profession, you have to be part of that profession. And one of the ways you're able to do that is through your professional certification. Now, I've talked here about what being a professional is and kind of this perspective that we're not alone in the world, that there's a larger community that we're benefiting from and hopefully contributing to that provides value to the people coming behind us. But also that certification part. When you have a professional certification, it means that everybody knows what you know. Now, you all have an advantage in that if you're from Miami University, people know Miami. When you go, accounting firms, businesses come to Miami specifically to recruit you because you went to Miami. But if you end up in a different part of the country, maybe somebody's never heard of Miami. If you go to another country and you say you went to Miami University, most people will think you're from Florida. And so the Miami accounting education that you have doesn't mean as much everywhere else in the world. Doesn't mean as much outside the Midwest. But if you have a professional certification, if you've passed the CPA exam, if you've passed the CIA exam, everybody knows what you know. That's the certificate part. Okay, I kind of explain it sometimes as that's your passport. That shows everybody what you already know. I passed this exam, I passed this syllabus. And so by having this idea of a profession and by having this idea of a certificate and putting that together with professional certification, that can help open the doors to where it is that you want to go. Now, I've been talking here about many times that accounting or audit and tax aren't the only opportunities. So what are some of the other accounting, what are the other jobs you can go into? What are the other areas of work that you can go into as an accountant? Well, there's obviously audit and tax. Internal audit is a wonderful profession. There is governmental accounting. There is not-for-profit accounting. And it may be that the salary at a not-for-profit isn't quite as large as the salary at some other companies. But if it's a not-for-profit that you believe in what it is that they're doing, that's fine. You don't have to make quite as much money. There's other value that you get from having a job that you enjoy, having a job that you go to and you're proud to contribute to it because you like what it is that the company's doing, you support what it is that the organization is doing. So there's governmental accounting, there's not-for-profit accounting. And the one that I think is often overlooked by accounting students is academia. Become a professor. Okay, now I understand you have to stay in school. At some point you're going to have to get your PhD to become a professor. But ask your accounting professors what their lifestyle is like. It's wonderful. Okay, I grew up in that environment where my father was a professor. Summer vacations, Christmas, winter vacation, spring break. How many hours a week do they teach? Okay, compare how many hours. I understand that the professors do a lot of things outside of class, but look at how many hours a week they're teaching compared to how many hours a week you're going to have to be in the office, wherever it is, working. So don't ignore academia as a way to use an accounting education, use a finance education. If you enjoy teaching, you enjoy talking, absolutely consider academia as a career, as an opportunity, as a career option as you're going through. But what I encourage you to do with the years that you have left at Miami is talk to people. Listen to the people who come. Listen to the people who come and speak to the accounting club. Attend other meetings where people from outside the university come and talk about what it is that they do and their experience and their jobs. Talk to your professors. Talk to anybody that you have an opportunity to, relatives who work in various areas, friends who work in various areas, and just try to learn what the people do. What is it that they do? What is it that they enjoy about their job? What makes them excited? What are the parts of their job that they don't find as enjoyable? And so when you then enter this recruiting process of trying to find a job, because not only are those firms interviewing you, but you need to remember you're also interviewing the firm. You want to work at a place where the corporate culture matches yours. You want to work at a place where the values and the principles that they use to operate their business are the same values and principles that you use in your life. And so use that recruiting time, use those interviews to try to learn about the company, what it is that the company's doing, the principles and values of that company, what it is they're looking for in the people you're going to be working with. Because you want this to be as much of a match as you are able to do, as you're able to find, so that you can enjoy what it is that you're doing after you graduate from Miami and you move out into that kind of real world as it exists these days. So I'm supposed to talk also about what specific professional certification is good, and also I'll give you some advice about how to pass your professional certification, how to pass the CPA exam, CMA exam, whatever it is. But there are, the first thing you need to do before you can pass the certification is determine which certification it is that you should take. Now, on one hand, there should be this, ideally this matching up between your values and your goals and what it is that this professional certification is going to do. Absolutely, we want that to happen. But we need to be realistic too. If the classes you are taking at Miami are geared towards the CPA exam, and the classes you take at Miami are going to cover the CPA exam syllabus, you should absolutely take the CPA exam as soon as you're able to at Miami. Absolutely, you should take it. Even if you decide, I don't want to work as an auditor, I don't want to work as a tax professional, I don't want to work in an accounting firm. You have the education that you've been learning in class. You're prepared for it. You're never going to be better prepared to take that exam than you are while you're studying. So take it. It cannot hurt to have it. Okay? It may not be ideally what you want to go into. It may not be exactly the certification for the career you want to go into, but it would be foolish not to take it if you're already mostly prepared for it. But in addition to just having this focus on CPA, Certified Management Accounting exam. Maybe you're not going to stay for 5 years. You don't want to get that master's degree. You don't want to spend that time. You are going to be done in 4 years, and you're going to go look for a job where you don't have to be a CPA. Lots of jobs like that. Lots of good jobs, well-paying jobs, enjoyable jobs. Well, in that case, you may want to consider becoming a Certified Management Accountant. And again, the classes you're taking right now are preparing you for the CMA exam. And so if you decide you're not going to stay for 5 years, you're not going to get your master's degree, you're going to graduate in 4 years, CMA may be the certification that you need to be looking to get while you're still at Miami. Because if you graduate and you're looking at all of your other classmates that are trying to get the same job you're trying to get, and you've passed the exams, you can't get your certification until you have experience. But if you've passed your exams, you're going to be the one who gets the job, not them. Okay, so take that exam. Certified Internal Auditor, CIA. If you like audit, but you're not certain that you like the idea of the career as an auditor in the Big Four, go into internal audit. It's auditing in a different environment. You're working for one company instead of a number of clients. You're going to be exposed to a lot more things more quickly than you will as a staff auditor somewhere. CIA exam. 3 exams. Take it while you're in school. If you've passed one of the parts, 2 of the parts, you're going to get that job, especially if you're trying to get into an internal audit job. Because if you're trying to get an internal audit job and you've taken, ideally passed, but even just taken the CIA exams, you're going to be the one who gets the job. Because you've demonstrated to the person who's recruiting you, you've demonstrated to that person interviewing you, that not only are you a good student and you have good grades, but you've made an investment into developing yourself as an internal auditor. So now there's other exams. I think CMA and CPA are the best, what I would call foundational exams, meaning they have the most career opportunities that come out of them. CIA is kind of narrow. If you want to go into internal audit, you should be a CIA. There's also Certified Fraud Examiner, Chartered Financial Analyst, CFA. If you want to go into investment banking, you need to be a CFA. And so you need to match your certification with that direction you think you want your career to go. So once you've decided what certification you think you need, the question then becomes, what do you need to do to pass? Now, I understand that you need to study. Okay, and that goes without saying. A lot of that studying you've already done, you're in school. But from the 20 plus years that I've been involved in certification, whether or not somebody's going to pass their exam or not can be determined by asking just one question. And if we were in a room talking face to face, I would ask you this one. If you said, I'm going to become a CPA, I want to take the CPA exams, I want to take the CMA exams, any exam, I could ask you one question. And from your answer to that one question, I can determine whether or not you're going to pass your exam. And the best part is it's an easy question. The question is this. The one question that I would ask is, why are you taking this exam? Why are you taking the CPA exam? Why are you taking the CMA exam? Why are you taking the CIA exam? If you cannot answer that question correctly, you will fail your exam. But if you can answer that question correctly, you will pass your exam. So then becomes, what's the correct answer? Well, the correct answer is any answer. You just need to be able to answer the question why you are taking it. If I ask you, why do you want to take the CPA exam? And you say, well, because I think I should. Well, because it just seems like it's the time everybody else, you're not going to pass. But if your answer is, I want to pass the CPA exam because it's going to help me get my first job, it's going to help me make more money, that's fine. You need to know why you're taking the exam. And if you know why, career, money, promotion, whatever the case is, if you know why you're taking that exam, you will pass. And so before you make the investment, whether it's this year, next year, 2 years from now, before you make that investment into study materials, into registration fees, or even into time to start preparing specifically for an exam, you need to make certain that you have an answer to the question why you're doing it. Because if you do have an answer to that question, you will pass. If you don't have an answer to that question, you're not going to pass because you're not going to study, you're not going to be committed, you're not going to be dedicated to it like you need to be. You're simply not going to be able to put in the effort that's needed to pass a professional certification exam. Now, when should you take a professional certification exam? I've said a few times, you should take it while you're at Miami. And if we go back to that whole ROI discussion at the beginning, bring it back to that, I said that you will make more money when you're certified. you will have a better job when you're certified. So if passing the certification exams is going to get you a better job, it's going to help you get a job, it's going to help you get promoted, it's going to help you make more money, you want to start making more money as early as possible. You don't want to wait 10 years and have just an average career and then say, hey, you know what? If after 10 years I become certified, I'm going to get promoted. No, you don't want to wait 10 years to get the benefit. If there are specific, tangible benefits you know that you will get from doing something, you should do it as soon as possible. And we know that there are specific, tangible financial benefits from becoming certified. And so you're going to want to make certain that you get certified as soon as you know the answer to the question, why it is that you're passing or why it is you're trying to pass that professional certification exam. So that kind of wraps up, I think, what I wanted to talk about in terms of why we're doing certifications, the value of certifications, the different certifications, and hopefully I didn't want to close any perspectives. I hopefully opened up some perspectives a little bit as to some of the options and opportunities that are available to you as you go into your career, as you go into getting your first job and looking into a career and finally joining a profession or considering yourself to be a professional.